2025 is almost here, and with it comes a fresh opportunity to completely transform the way you paint. If you have been feeling stuck, like your work is overworked or lifeless, this is the moment to reset. Today, I'm walking you through the exact steps that you need to take to set yourself up for success in the new year. To make this as easy as possible, I've created a free downloadable checklist of all the steps that I'm going to go over in this video. Make sure to grab it. It's down in the description so that you can stay focused and intentional as you plan your next year of painting and artistic growth. So why make 2025 the year that you finally break free from tight, controlled oil painting and start creating the expressive, painterly work that you've always dreamed of making and that you feel represents your voice? Well, let's dive in and map it out together. So before we go into techniques and exercises, take a moment and ask yourself, why is 2025 the year that I want to make this change? Or more to the point, why is it the year that I'm going to make a change? So maybe you're tired of overworking your pieces or feeling disconnected from your art. Whatever your reason, write it down and keep it visible. It's going to be your anchor for the year. So you might feel like this is a make or break year, or that you've spent so much time perfecting your technical skills, but your work still doesn't reflect you. You admire the expressive brushwork and personality in artists like Sargent or Schmid, but your paintings feel overly tight and controlled or even lifeless. And if you're tired of feeling stuck and frustrated every time you sit down at the easel, this year, you want to break free from the monotony of that, of safe, over-controlled paintings, so that you can finally start to create the art that feels bold, expressive, and like it's coming from your voice. Maybe you don't want to spend another year spinning your wheels or painting things that just don't bring you joy. It's time to rediscover why you fell in love with painting in the first place. Maybe you want 2025 to be the year that you finally loosen up, you find your voice, and you make paintings that you're proud to share, paintings that actually feel alive. Whatever your intention is, whatever your why, whatever it is that makes you realize that this really is the year to make a change, we need to start out by knowing that, because that's what's going to give you the motivation to come back to this and stick with it throughout the next 12 months. So once you've set that intention, go ahead and write it down. And now that you've done that, it's time to get specific about what success really looks like for you. So do you want to master bold, painterly portraits? Develop bravura brushwork? Start envisioning your ideal outcome and hold on to that image. So my favorite way to get a really clear picture in my mind of what the goal looks like for my art is to do this exercise. After you watch this video and you put together your outline, your plan for the next 12 months, this is the one exercise that I recommend that you do right away to set yourself up for success next year. So don't wait until January for this one. Once you put together your plan, dive into this. And by the way, if you're not sure exactly where to start, or if you want to make sure you haven't missed any important pieces, don't worry, all of this is outlined in the free checklist that I've created for you that's down in the description. But for right now, let me go ahead and walk you through what this exercise looks like for me. So here is what this first and most important exercise actually looks like in action, start to finish. So first things first, I'm going to be using Pinterest to create this vision board for my goal for my artwork. That being said, you do not need to use Pinterest. This is simply what I find is easiest for most folks most of the time. But you can use something like a Google Drive folder, a folder on your computer. Heck, you can even get a cork board and set it up behind you and actually print out images of your favorite artwork and literally pin it to the cork board or make a physical photo album. The medium you're using isn't really what's important. What's actually important is the overall process. So as I walk you through what this looks like on Pinterest specifically, just keep in mind that you can apply these exact same principles to a different tool if that's where you would prefer to set up your vision board for your goal. So let's go ahead and dive in, starting with, on my screen, I'm going to go over to Pinterest. first things first, you need to make sure that you are signed into an account. That's going to be the natural first step. If you haven't done this, Pinterest is probably going to prompt you to do it. I can tell that I'm logged in because I have my little profile picture up here to the right, and over it says your profile. What we're going to go ahead and do next is to actually proceed to that profile. And I just did that by clicking this little icon. So this is what my Pinterest homepage looks like. Yours probably will look different if you haven't made any boards before, but all that's important here is over to the right, we're going to just go ahead and click this little plus icon to create a new board. So after I click this, it'll give me the option to say pin or board. I'm going to go ahead and hit board, and then I'm going to call it something like 2025 Master Painting Inspiration Board. Something that is important. If you plan on sharing this with anybody, myself included, because I oftentimes, if someone reaches out to me with a question or they're wanting help, I actually like to see your Pinterest board. Make sure you keep this unchecked. That way you can actually share it with me. So I will go ahead and hit create, leaving this unchecked. Pinterest is going to go ahead and make some suggestions once you create the board, but we can go ahead and skip this step because chances are what they're actually gonna suggest to you isn't gonna be relevant to painting. So this is what it will look like as soon as you have created this. There aren't any actual pins of artwork on here yet, so that's the next thing we need to go ahead and do. Now, what's cool is that we can go ahead and save images directly from Pinterest. We can save it from various artists' websites, Instagram accounts. We can also upload things that come directly from your computer that maybe you've already saved. What I find is really helpful if you're using something like Chrome is to actually download the Pinterest Chrome extension. This makes it a lot easier when you're pinning from artists' websites or something like Instagram. So let's go ahead and walk through what this is going to look like for this first inspiration board. I'm ultimately going to suggest that you make two of these. One is going to be the master, like all-encompassing vision board for all of the kind of art that you like. The second one is going to be a curated down vision of exactly where your style is headed. But let's go ahead and start with this master inspiration board first. That's like the central repository for everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and save a few pins to get us started. And what I will do at the bottom of this board, and I'm going to show you as I pin these, I'm going to show you how to do this from a couple of different places. So first things first, I'm going to show you how to pin from Instagram, because a lot of you have probably favorited artwork from Instagram. All right, so I have gone ahead and navigated over to my Instagram account, and I've just gone to my saved folder where I have a lot of artwork that I've saved because I wanted to actually add it to my Pinterest board. You can do this by going to your own saved folder on Instagram, but you also don't have to use the saved folder. You can just pin things as you encounter them in your Instagram feed. But I already have a lot of these saved, so I'm going to do this to save some time here. So I'm going to kick off by saving this gorgeous piece from Daniel Keyes. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take advantage of the fact that I have this Pinterest Chrome extension. Because I have this Chrome extension, you'll notice that when I mouse over this picture, there's a little red icon that has the Pinterest logo and then it says save. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that, and you will see that because I've created this 2025 Master Painting Inspiration Board, I can just go ahead and highlight over that and hit save. And this is now officially on that board. Another way you can do this, let's go ahead and choose another piece here. Up here in my Chrome window, my browser window, I see this little Pinterest icon. I can just go ahead and hit that. And this will allow me to find the image on the page that I want to save. So I'm going to highlight this image here, hit next, find this 2025 Master Inspiration Board. By the way, if it doesn't come up, you can always just type in 2025 and it should pop up. And then you just hit save and it will be over there on that board. This is how you can go ahead and start saving images that you might have already been compiling through Instagram. Now let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do this from an artist's website. So here I have Richard Schmidt's website pulled up. He's one of my eternally top influences. His work is just so incredible. So for many of you who really love painters like Sargent or Sorolla or Zorn, chances are you probably know and are inspired by Richard's work as well. So on his website, I'm going to go ahead and pull up one of his paintings. Again, because I have this Chrome extension, all I really need to do is mouse over the image. When I hover over that little Pinterest save button, it'll go ahead and actually at this point suggest that 2025 master inspiration board, but I could always change it by just hitting that down arrow, and then I'll hit save and it'll automatically go over there. I can do the same thing by going over to my website here. So let's go ahead and say that I want to save this particular piece. Just going to choose the version of this that I like the look of the most. And again, all I have to do is mouse over it. And because I have that Pinterest extension on Chrome, it'll just pop right up and I can add it. Now, let's say that you don't have this Pinterest extension. By the way, to do this, all you need to do is just Google Pinterest browser extension, and you should be able to find directions on how to add this. This is typically what I find is easiest. But just in case, let me find a different example here. I'm going to go back to my inspiration board, and if I refresh this, I should actually start to see some of these images populating. I can go down to the bottom, click this plus icon, select create pin. I can hit save from URL, and then I can just copy and then paste, and then I will see the image come up and I can say add one pen and hit save. Now, let's see if this actually works for Instagram as well. So I have my Instagram URL here for this post. So I'll hit this plus icon, create pin, save from URL. I will paste that Instagram link in, and it will let me go ahead and add this particular piece. So already I've shown you what this will look like if you are using the Pinterest extension. I've also shown you what this will look like if you are just using the default tool within Pinterest that's based on a URL. But now let's go ahead and take a look at what this would look like if you're uploading from your computer. So once again, we're just going to click this plus sign icon at the bottom of our Pinterest board, hit create pin, and over here on the right, I have a folder on my computer with a painting of mine that I want to go ahead and put on this board. And all I'm going to do is drag it and drop. So I just gave it a quick title to remind myself of the name of the painting and the artist. I'm making sure this is going into the 2025 Master Inspiration Board, and I will go ahead and hit publish. And then I can hit view and see that it's on my board. All right, so now we've gone ahead and walked through all of the different ways that you can add some art that you might have already saved onto your Pinterest board. Next, let's look at one more tool that we can use, which is that we can use the actual Pinterest algorithm to help us find additional paintings. Now, I want to give a quick disclaimer. I used to really like this tool. I've been helping artists create vision boards or inspiration boards for their artwork for 5 years now, probably longer than that actually. But lately, with all of the AI art capabilities, I've noticed that Pinterest is really overrun with AI art. This is not fundamentally a problem. I'm certainly not going to get into a debate over the merits or problems or ethical concerns surrounding AI in this particular video. Here's why I'm a little concerned with it for this exercise. At this initial stage, when we're just kind of saving all the artwork we like, it might not really be a big deal. But later on in the journey, you're actually going to look at cues from some of your favorite paintings to inform how you want to paint. And the thing is, with these AI paintings, they weren't actually made in oil. So a very common problem that comes up is that we'll look at something that was created digitally, try to do something like a master copy of it, or try to use some of the techniques in that piece and apply it to oil. and realize that the things we're trying to do aren't physically possible. But if you're actually referencing an oil painting, it should be physically possible. So I hope you can see where this creates a little bit of a problem. When possible, we really want to make sure that we're paying attention to who these artists are and how the work was made. And increasingly on Pinterest, it's really hard to separate the oil paintings from the AI imitations. So with that disclaimer aside, I just want you to be on the lookout for that, but I will still go ahead and show you how to use the Pinterest algorithm to help you round out this board. Now, the first thing I want to say with that disclaimer out of the way is that this feature works best when this board is already pretty darn comprehensive. I'm kind of showing you this at a really early stage when I only have a handful of paintings on here. Ideally, you would use this at the point at which you have saved everything that you can think of, and maybe you're just looking to round out this collection a little bit. What you will do is, once your board is created, you will simply scroll down to the bottom and you'll look at this section that's actually right near the plus icon that says find some ideas for this board, and you're just going to click that section. And then what you should find are pieces that are similar to a lot of the work that you've saved. And all you have to do to add these pieces to your board is to hit the little pin icon in the upper right-hand corner of any of the pieces that you really like. So for me in particular, I'm being really careful to actually make sure that I know who made these particular pieces, that I recognize them. If I don't recognize something, I'll probably investigate it further before I go ahead and add it to my board. All right, and then when you're done, you can simply hit the back button on your browser, and you should see that you have a bunch more paintings added to this inspiration board. So to give you a quick overview of how far you want to take this initial inspiration board that you put together, the idea is for this to be a central repository of everything you really like. So I would keep going so long as there are still pieces that you can think of that you might like to have added to this collection. But at the point at which you have thought about all your favorite artists, your favorite paintings, and you think you have just about everything you want to see on here, then it's time to go ahead and proceed into the second step, which is where we actually filter this down to a curated vision, a filtered down version of the art that you like. And this is ultimately going to show us what direction your style is headed in. So once this master inspiration board is done, to go ahead and start setting up your curated inspiration board for 2025, here's the easiest way to do that. So with your master inspiration board open, go ahead and start by simply choosing maybe your favorite painting from this collection that you want to bring into your filtered down version for your goal. So maybe the most favorite painting that's on here. For me, I'm going to go ahead and choose this piece. So I will click it to open it up. And then right next to the save icon, I'm going to just click this down arrow next to it. And I'm going to say create board. And I'm going to call this the 2025 curated painting inspiration board. I will leave secret unchecked because once again, I might want to share this with somebody. You will probably want to leave this unchecked in case you ever want to share this Pinterest board with me for any reason. And then all you do once you have the piece, the name, and you have secret unchecked is go ahead and hit create. Now, this board is officially created, but we're not going to navigate over there yet. We are going to think about this master inspiration board, the first one that we made, as being like the top of a funnel that's filtering us down to the vision that we ultimately have for our work. What we want to do from here is to go ahead and start selecting the works on here that most resonate with our goals for 2025. For most people, you can do this simply by choosing your favorites. But I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple of other things to consider here. For some folks, choosing your most favorite pieces can feel like having to choose your favorite child. And so if that's a tricky idea for you, one different way that you can approach this would be to ask yourself, if I had to cut this collection of paintings in half, what would be the first have to go? Like, what would be the paintings that remain, essentially? Those remaining pieces that don't get cut might be pieces that make it onto your curated inspiration board. Or you could essentially whittle this down by asking, if I had to take just one painting off of this collection, maybe it's something that I could personally live without having made something like it myself. What would that piece be? Another way that you could think about this is to consider things like the medium or the process required. So some of these might be paintings that aren't actually made in oil. They could be watercolor, they could be graphite drawings, or they could be oil paintings that simply take a really laborious process that I'm not personally interested in. So for instance, I absolutely love this Jeremy Lipking piece, but this is probably a level of tightness or level of detail in the work that I personally am not probably going to gravitate toward. I typically like something that takes a little bit less time to create and feels a little bit looser. So by asking those kinds of questions, what we should be left with are a collection of pieces that really embody the direction that aligns with the medium we want to work in. It's a process we would actually enjoy painting in, and it's the kind of style that we don't just like looking at, but we would feel like our lives were incomplete if we hadn't made something like that before we die. So I'm going to go ahead and pin a few of those pieces onto my curated board. Again, I'm going to do that just by mousing over the pin that I want to transfer, clicking this down arrow, and just selecting the curated inspiration board. And I'll do that with a few of these. And then we should be able to go ahead and take a look at this curated board. And already we can start to see that the vision is a little bit more cohesive than what we had on the master inspiration board. Now, I would keep pinning until you have probably, 20 or 30 paintings on here. And what you should naturally see is that the direction is a little bit more cohesive. So already between the two of these, I have a few different styles on here. But as soon as I click over to this curated inspiration board, notice how similar a lot of the color choices are. Notice the similarities in terms of the abstracted background, in terms of the subjects being chosen. This is the power of using this planning process. So just to recap some of the things you can look for once you have curated your board down, I would look for any patterns in terms of the subjects being chosen, the compositions or how those subjects are arranged in the piece, the kind of brushwork that we see, and certainly the medium or the overall process necessary to get that kind of brushwork or those sorts of textures on the canvas, the color palettes or what colors are being prioritized, the value structure or what the value ranges would look like if these were all in black and white, the way that these are lit, is the light warm, is the light cool? Once you notice these patterns, it can actually serve as a really interesting checklist that you can compare your artwork to. And this is what I recommend doing next, is actually looking at your artwork next to this curated board to help you identify what those skill gaps actually are. But I'll circle back to that in just a second. For now, let's go ahead and zoom back out to the overall planning process. Now that we have the goal in sight, I want to take a moment to talk about another change that we can make right now that will set us up for success in creating our goal style of loose oil painting. And that is to optimize our mindset. Because perfectionism, fear of mistakes, feeling like you need to get that A or gold star, or just feeling like you're not ready can really hold you back. So let's go ahead and reframe that so it doesn't trip us up in the coming year. The reframe is this: every painting is progress, and every brushstroke is part of the process. Now, if you're afraid that saying this to yourself will somehow make you soft or cause you to take your foot off the gas, listen to this. Most painting skills require repetition to master. I'm going to say it again. Most painting skills require repetition for you to master them. It is very rare to simply find the one right exercise and have a complete transformation in one sitting. In fact, I cannot think of a single example of this happening. Painting well is a matter of mastery, and mastery is something that is honed over time. So long as we have a clear end goal in mind, which you will from the previous step in this process, your efforts are going to be tailored to that specific goal, which means that simply showing up in an intentional way is enough to see progress in the right direction. Where we really get into trouble is when we just go into the studio and we keep doing the things we've always done, things that haven't been tailor-made to the specific end result that we want to make. That's why this process is so helpful, and this is why I want you to go through this first step before you dive back into the studio work. But because you will know what the goal is, just making sure that you're getting in the studio and doing exercises that are aligned with that goal are going to be enough for you to see forward progress. So that way, when we overwork a painting or when we ruin a painting in the name of experimentation or learning, what's important isn't the outcome. It's not what did that painting look like. The real growth comes from getting curious about why that happened. Asking what we would have done differently, or what set us up to run into a particular problem, or what set us up to fall back into old habits. Remember, success in 2025 starts with giving yourself permission to explore and experiment. But what does that exploration look like? To answer that, the next step is to get really clear on what's holding you back. This is where we shift out of planning mode and we start taking action. So if the previous steps are items that you're going to tackle over the month of December, this next step is what you're going to be diving into come January. So when you take a look at your inspiration board, what differences do you see between the board and your work? Is it the kind of brush marks that you get, or your compositional choices, what you're choosing to paint, your color choices, how the subject is lit, or maybe even what process you're using? Once you know, what you want to do is to tackle each of these skill gaps with focused exercises that isolate each challenge. For example, try master studies to work on brush economy, or color matching drills to really nail your understanding of chroma and value. Again, these exercises are all laid out for you in the downloadable checklist so you can hit the ground running. Chances are you'll probably tackle these challenges over the course of months. So maybe you start off the year with some drills to become less reliant on a grid or a pencil underdrawing. Then by February, you dive into color to mix things up for that month. The pacing is ultimately up to you and your unique circumstances. But I would start with the skills that seem simplest to tackle, or maybe most foundational, and then work your way progressively to trickier topics over the course of the year. As a quick heads up, I typically find that things like working in black and white on your proportions or your value control, those tend to naturally come earlier in the process than working on something like color or brushwork. Similarly, if there are some simple adjustments that you can make to your subject matter or compositions earlier in the year, you're probably going to be way more satisfied right away with the kinds of paintings that you're making. So if you watch my channel because you love alla prima portraiture, but all you've been doing are plein air landscapes or putting an apple on a table and painting it, well, you can probably make a meaningful shift right away if you start working off of really high quality portrait reference. And not only that, but you should actually see your work start to meaningfully align with the direction you want to take your work in. So changing the subject matter to align with your goal can be a really great early adjustment, along with things like drawing or value work. But as you progress through this entire journey, you're going to notice a shift from focusing on individual skills to applying everything to your own original work. So the point at which you find yourself successfully navigating all of these skill gaps, you've chosen the right subject, you're nailing the likeness, you have really excellent brushwork, your color game is on point, and you're avoiding those really muddy tones, this is when you can step away from practice mode and you can shift the rest of the year into production mode and start really creating the kind of art that you're proud to share. I want you to celebrate these moments. Write it in your plan right now. Notice when you have a piece that just looks like it could go on your Pinterest board, because those paintings are the real proof of your growth and your hard work, and proof that you really do have this capability in you. By now, you have the steps to make 2025 the year that your paintings transform. Setting your intention, creating your vision, addressing your mindset, tackling skill gaps, and stepping into production mode so you actually have beautiful original paintings to show for your hard work. To make it easier, don't forget to download the free checklist down in the description. I'll also pin it at the top of the comments. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop me a comment or send me an email. This checklist is your roadmap to start planning ahead and taking action immediately. Let's make 2025 your most creative and fulfilling year yet. I can't wait to see what you make.